So, should a nonprofit or maybe any group really focused on a mission start a business arm? Something that makes
It's a
money.
social enterprise, yeah.
Right, exactly. Think maybe a food bank starting a catering service to fund itself. Or, I don't know, a conservation group doing eco-tours. It's a really big question lots of organizations are facing.
It really is.
And in this deep dive, we're going to try and cut through some of the noise on this. We're using a pretty unique tool, a multi-agent debate bot.
Which is fascinating because it strips away the usual human biases, right? It just gives you the pure logic from different viewpoints.
Precisely. So our goal here is to pull out the key insights, maybe some surprising facts from these different perspectives.
Yeah.
Basically a shortcut to getting up to speed on this whole topic.
And it's amazing how these distinct viewpoints, each starting from different principles, tackle the exact same question. The bot really lets us see all the angles.
Okay, let's dive in then. First perspective, the conservative lens. What does Agent A, the bot representing that view, bring to the discussion about social enterprise?
Well, Agent A came at it with a fair bit of caution. The focus was very much on principles like fiscal responsibility, limited intervention, sort of like you'd think about government's role in markets, but applied to the organization itself, and free market ideas.
So the main worry is getting sidetracked, losing focus.
Exactly. That was the first big argument. Focus on core competencies. Agent A really stressed that organizations should stick to their main mission. Otherwise, you risk inefficiency or just diluting your purpose. Is this new thing really aligned, or is it a distraction?
Okay, stick to what you know best. Makes sense. What else?
Second was financial risk and accountability. This is huge from that perspective. Prudent management is absolutely key. Is this venture actually viable? Can it stand on its own feet financially? And you need transparent ways to be accountable to your stakeholders.
Right. Can't risk the main mission's finances.
Precisely. Third, market competition and fair play. The idea here is that if a nonprofit starts a business, it has to compete fairly. It shouldn't get unfair advantages just because it's a nonprofit.
So things like using tax-exempt status to undercut local businesses, that kind of thing. Agent A says avoid that.
That's exactly the kind of concern the bot flagged. It needs to be a level playing field.
Yeah.
Then Agent A also brought up long-term sustainability. You need a solid business model, something that can actually last, through economic ups and downs.
Not just a flash in the pan.
Right. And finally, impact measurement and accountability. You need clear ways to measure if you're actually achieving anything tangible. Real results matter.
Okay, that's a clear picture of the cautious, fiscally responsible approach from Agent A. But I'm really interested now to hear the contrast. How does Agent B, representing the liberal view, make the case for launching a social enterprise?
Well, Agent B sees this very differently. For them, it's a really compelling opportunity, a chance for innovation, for expanding impact. It aligns strongly with values like social equity, driving innovation, and empowering communities. It's about being proactive.
Proactive solutions, not just reacting. That definitely sounds different. So what were Agent B's main arguments?
Okay, first off, social innovation and impact. Using creative business ideas to tackle big problems. Poverty, education, environment, creating, sustainable ways to make change.
Okay.
Second, diversifying funding streams is a big one. Reducing that dependence on donations and grants. It gives the organization more independence, makes it more resilient.
Less beholden to funders' whims, maybe.
Potentially, yeah. More financial freedom. Third, empowerment and community engagement. Thinking about creating jobs locally, boosting the local economy, promoting social inclusion, directly tackling inequality through the business itself. Fourth, environmental and social responsibility. Positioning these enterprises as leaders, showing how business can be done ethically and sustainably.
Setting an example.
Exactly. And finally, measuring success beyond profit. Yes, profit might be needed to sustain it, but success is viewed more holistically. It's about the social impact, community well-being, not just the bottom line.
That sounds, well, very positive, very aspirational. But does Agent B's view acknowledge how hard it actually is to make these things work in the real world against established businesses? Or is it mostly focused on the why rather than the how?
That's a fair question. And while Agent B is definitely driven by that positive vision, the bot's analysis showed their deeper arguments do get into the how. For instance, they elaborate on advancing social equity. That means practical things like inclusive hiring practices or designing products specifically for underserved groups, and then reinvesting the profits back into the community.
So it's built into the operations.
Right. They also see these ventures as a catalyst for policy change. By showing these models can work prioritizing social good, they hope to influence broader corporate behavior and government policy towards sustainable development.
So demonstrating viability to push for wider change. Interesting.
Yeah, and linked to that is encouraging ethical consumerism, setting high standards themselves, which hopefully empowers consumers like you to make choices based on values.
Making it easier for people to vote with their wallets, so to speak.
Exactly. There's also a focus on fostering global partnerships, collaborating internationally on big challenges, climate change, poverty, education, sharing knowledge and resources across borders. And lastly, promoting a circular economy, thinking about minimizing waste, maximizing resource use, really embracing sustainability in a practical way that can also create economic opportunities.
Okay, we've covered the conservative caution and the liberal enthusiasm. Let's totally shift gears now. Agent C, the scientific perspective, how does this one approach the decision? Less ideology, more data.
That's it, exactly. Agent C is all about empirical evidence, rigorous evaluation, decisions guided by data, by research. It's systematic, trying to strip away assumptions and see what the evidence actually says works.
Right, no gut feelings here. So what were Agent C's core data-first arguments?
First and foremost, evidence-based decision-making. This means doing your homework up front. Thorough market research, feasibility studies, assess the demand, understand the risks, minimize the guesswork. Rely on facts. Second, impact evaluation frameworks. This is crucial. Implementing really robust ways to measure impact with clear, quantifiable goals. And using scientific methods, maybe randomized controlled trials or longitudinal studies to get reliable data on what difference you're actually making.
Could you give an example? For listeners thinking about impact, how might a nonprofit launching, say, a job training cafe use an RCT?
Sure. Well, Agent C might suggest something like this. You identify, say, 100 people eligible for the training. You randomly assign 50 to the new cafe program and the other 50 to a control group, maybe receiving existing support services. Then you track outcomes, employment rates, income levels, maybe even well-being metrics for both groups over time.
Okay, so you can isolate the cafe's specific effect.
Exactly. It helps you understand the added value of the social enterprise itself, separate from other factors. Following that, Agent C stressed interdisciplinary collaboration, drawing expertise from different fields, economics, sociology, environmental science, to get a fuller picture.
Makes sense. These problems are complex.
Definitely. Fourth, scalability and replicability. Can this model grow? Can it be copied successfully elsewhere to increase the impact? That's a key scientific question. Fifth, risk assessment and mitigation. Systematically identifying potential problems, financial, operational, even reputational risks, and using data analysis to develop strategies to manage them.
Planning for what could go wrong based on evidence.
Precisely. And finally, adaptability and continuous improvement. You don't just launch and forget. It's about constant monitoring, evaluating the data, and using that feedback to tweak and improve your strategies, staying responsive. Data drives iteration.
So Agent C's initial points really hammer home the need for solid data before and during. But things move fast. How does that scientific lens get, well, more dynamic? How does it integrate innovation beyond just measuring things?
Great point. Agent C's expanded arguments focused on integrating that empirical approach with technology and more forward-looking strategies. For instance, data-driven innovation, using things like big data analytics, maybe machine learning, to get deeper insights into customer behavior, optimize how things run, tailor services more effectively.
Using tech to sharpen the science.
Exactly. They also brought up behavioral science applications, using insights from how people actually behave, things like nudges or carefully designed incentives to improve marketing, product design, or how you engage the community, making interventions more effective based on psychology.
Clever.
Then there's sustainability science and environmental impact, really digging into the environmental footprint using methods like life cycle assessments, tracking impact from start to finish to minimize resource use and waste.
So it's not just social or financial data, but environmental data too, backed by science.
Absolutely. Agent C also emphasized systems thinking and complexity science. Basically understanding that these enterprises don't exist in a vacuum. They're part of complex systems. So you need to understand those interactions to find the best places to intervene for maximum effect, seeing the bigger picture.
Right, the ripple effects.
And critically, ethical considerations in scientific research. Ensuring data is collected transparently, people give informed consent, privacy is respected. That's vital for building trust and legitimacy. And finally, pilot testing and iterative development. Don't go all in at once. Test your model on a smaller scale, gather real-world feedback and data, refine it, then launch fully. It builds in that agility and learning loop. What's really striking when you lay it all out is how each perspective, conservative, liberal, scientific, offers such a unique but still valuable way of looking at social enterprises. Each brings its own priorities, its own methods. The bot's analysis just makes that logic really clear for each one.
Okay, so we've heard these distinct arguments: caution, innovation, evidence. What does this all mean for someone listening, maybe someone in an organization thinking, should we start a revenue-generating arm? How do you make sense of it all?
Well, connecting it all together, I think it really underscores just how multifaceted these ventures are. And what's interesting, perhaps surprisingly, is where these different views might actually overlap or complement each other.
Overlap, like how?
Well, for instance, think about data. Both the conservative lens, Agent A, and the scientific lens, Agent C, put a huge emphasis on needing robust data. Agent A wants it for fiscal accountability and RAG management. Agent C wants it for measuring impact and making evidence-based decisions. The why is different, but the what, the need for good data, is shared.
Ah, I see. So different motivations leading to a similar need.
Exactly. And this suggests that maybe the most effective approach isn't picking one perspective, but finding a balance. Drawing strengths from each could lead to something much more sustainable and genuinely impactful.
But that feels like the million-dollar question, doesn't it? If your nonprofit is inspired by that liberal vision of social innovation, but you absolutely cannot ignore the conservative warnings about financial prudence, how do you even start to reconcile those? Where does Agent C, the scientific view, fit in as a bridge?
That's where Agent C's approach becomes really powerful, I think. It can act almost like a translator or a mediator between the other two. It takes Agent A's demand for, say, a robust business model and Agent B's desire for sustainable avenues for change, and it provides the practical how.
How so?
Through things like the data-driven pilot testing we talked about, the feasibility studies, the iterative development based on feedback, it provides a methodology to build something that is both fiscally responsible and demonstrably impactful. You're using evidence to satisfy that need for prudence while maximizing the potential for positive change.
So the data satisfies the conservative need for proof and risk management.
Right.
And it helps refine and target the liberal drive for impact, making it more effective.
Exactly. It provides a common ground based on evidence rather than just competing values.
So this deep dive, using our non-human debate bot, really shows that whether your starting point is fiscal responsibility or social justice or just hard evidence, deciding to create a social enterprise needs really careful thought. It demands planning, and it has to align with some core values and methods.
It really does, and it brings up a crucial question, I think, for anyone listening. Considering these very different angles, the cautious, the optimistic, the empirical, what stands out to you is the most critical factor when you're thinking about a venture that wants to do good and make money? And maybe even more importantly, how could deliberately bringing together insights from all three of these viewpoints actually lead to something stronger, more resilient, and ultimately more impactful in the causes you care about?
Definitely questions worth thinking about as you navigate this complex world of mixing purpose with profit.